Hey, how's everybody doing? Welcome to Boomer's Paint Shop. So I got a good period of painting in this afternoon. I had to move quite quickly. The mosquitoes were ferocious out there on the porch. But anyway, I got her done. There was four subjects that I painted or got some paint on. 381's tank and chassis. I got that, the first couple layers painted there. Then I did some weathering and toning down on the cold storage here, and then I've also painted the yard office, the first couple of coats. I'll discuss that. And then the railings in the gate, I'll also discuss that as well. So first up is the cold storage, and I wanted to tone it down a fair bit. It was a little bit too pink, so I wanted to weather it down and fade it some more. But first I wanted to throw a bunch of raw umber and some greens and whites and sepia and so on. And I'll just tell you right here that I used Vallejo Air green, a little bit of that around the gutters and stuff like that. And then burnt umber, which is a common go-to weathering color wash. And then white for lightening down. And then these two little tubes, this is Artist Gouache Burnt Sienna by M.H. Graham, really strong pigment. The gouache really works really good. And then this sepia, so they're all sort of earthy tone, good weathering colors. So what I do basically is I just wet the whole, you can spray with a spray bottle or use a brush. I get lots of water on the model. It's called wet on wet. I lay it down like that, and I just get a whole flood the facade with water. And then I just start working some of the burnt umbers and sepia at the top here with a bit of rust, and I just keep washing it down, washing it away until I see areas that I like. If I don't like it, I just wash again, brush. So you're throwing a lot of the paint on, literally, and then you're washing it off in a downward sort of manner. And then you get little random areas like this underneath here. I don't know if you can see that. And then there's some interesting stains there. So when I got all this done, it didn't look that great because it was pretty strong and it looked like just a muddy wash, but I just let all that dry. And then I come back later with the airbrush with Tamiya. This is the really light mauve color that I used originally. All right. And so I just dust it over with a bit of that, and then this is super thin white, like really thin. There's a little bit of mauve in there too, like really thin. And then I just take the airbrush and I just start dusting it over and then working it up and down in some streaks and staying in some areas. It actually looks a lot better, I think, in reality than it does on the camera. But it's faded down nice. I really like the way it looks now. It looks, you know, weathered and faded. It was a bit too pink before, and then I did a bit of work on the doors here. And then on the roof, this, I didn't really paint this, I left it. I kind of like this color, actually, the natural color. But I just put some stains of burnt umber with water, just tinted water, just all in and around there, and it's looking pretty good. So I'll probably give it another dull coat in a day or two once that paint sets up good. And then I don't know if you can see this, but there's some interesting little build-up residue there. You know, I mean, I didn't plan that, but that's the kind of thing that happens. And that's what you want, right? You want a lot of randomness, but don't think about it too much. Just have fun, literally throw paint on, you know, whatever. Just try different things, because you're always going to wash it off down to the bottom here anyway. And sometimes a lot of the build-up ends up looking pretty good along the bottom of the foundation. So let the water and the pigment do the work for you while you're just playing around, right? Anyway, so right now I'm pretty happy with this. I might do a little bit of tweaking, maybe a little highlighting like dry brushing, but I would pretty much call it done. And then at some point I'll add some signage probably up here, or you know, maybe A, B markers here for the doors. And yeah, so pretty happy with the cold storage. Okay, the yard office. Okay, so what I did with this is I painted the whole model with olive green. It says RLM gray, but it's actually There's other green, there's green I put in there, and black. I just randomly sprayed it. I don't get cover fully, I just darken things on the inside there. It does get lighter after, and I'll tell you how that happens. But anyway, so I just paint basically the whole model black or a really dark olive up all underneath all the eaves and stuff, right? Because all that's going to be shadow, right? You want to paint the shadow into the model, especially these small scale models, because they don't show well unless you do the light and shadow. Anyway, so once that's all painted, and it's just sort of a black building at that point, and then the bottom of the roof was a dark olive and black as well, and the top was black, but not fully covered. Just, you know, I allowed some of the white evergreen to show through, so you get different tones. And then with the roof, quickly, I just used this blue. This is a sky blue, just light overspray. Let, you know, some of the black is kind of showing through a little bit there. Then you get the different random tones, right? So then what I did was, so the building's supposed to be white, so, but they're never really pure white. So what I do is, before I paint any white on, I use this color here, and every painter should have this color. Buff. This is an excellent color. So I airbrush lightly around the whole model with a little bit of buff. Right, let it go where it may. And then there's other colors too, wooden deck tan, and then there's earth. Like, these are 3 colors that you have to have if you're into weathering for airbrushing. Wooden deck tan, earth, and buff. Those are very important colors. Anyway, so then once the buff is done, I take the white, thin down fairly good, and I just start dusting it and spraying it white and putting a little more emphasis on the doors and things like that. Like just highlighting along here, along, you know, below the eaves, and you know, along these rails here, just randomly in places, right? So it's sort of gray looking, really, but then you get the shadow effect, right? See, there's a good shot there. So yeah, so that's what it ends up being. And I took a little bit of earth and, you know, built up around the bottom of the doors, and I let some of it go inside, so I dust in there too, just to lighten up that olive in there. Right. So yeah, so when the roof's on, she's starting to look pretty good. So there's a few layers. So what I'll do is I'll hit this with a flat coat after a couple of days, or dull coat, and then I'll just start adding some washes, right? Like some burnt umber washes, maybe on the roof, and, you know, some along the side here, and then once that's dry, then I'll take some pure white, like oil paint, with a stubby brush, and then I'll just highlight, dry brush the white, and then that sort of makes the model pop a bit more, maybe a little bit of streaking here from, you know, the heat of the pipe, and just down here, and yeah, so just have a little bit of fun with it. So there's the yard office. She's coming together. Okay, so here's the guardrails and the gate and some of the other little details. So what I did was I airbrushed all these items flat black and red hull brown. Okay, just randomly black and hull red. Okay. You can make hull red from just a regular brown and add red if you want. And then I used yellow to overspray the gate and some of this sign here and stuff. And then I like to have a little bit of red and blue around as well, because once you have the primary colors, you can mix any color, right? Okay, so once I did that, now the next step is I'm going to use this chipping medium here by Vallejo. There's other ways of doing this. I heard you can use hairspray. I think I've used it many years ago, but I'm going to try this here. So I'm going to paint the Vallejo chipping medium, water-based, over top of all the railings. I'm going to coat them all. And then I'm going to let that dry, and then I'm going to follow up with Vallejo Pale Blue Gray. So it's got that sort of galvanized gray look. I'll airbrush them all gray completely, except for the gate and these yellow parts. And then I'll go at it with some water and a toothbrush and then knock off some of the gray and stuff so that this rust color shows through randomly all over the guardrails, right? So I know that if you spray with Tamiya and put the chipping medium on as step 2 and then spray with Tamiya over top of the chipping medium, it won't come off, like it won't work. So just so you know, you got to use Vallejo with this chipping medium over top. If you put Tamiya over top of chipping medium, it doesn't work very well. So it has something to do with the reaction to water. I know this paint, Vallejo, doesn't mix that well with isopropyl alcohol, but Tamiya loves it. So anyway, so chipping medium and then Vallejo blue gray over top, and then we'll probably see those on the layout down the road a bit when those are done. Okay, so here's 381's chassis and tank in closing. I just want to show you that this is the actual prototype photo. You can see it's quite heavily weathered here with earth tones everywhere, and it's even on the trucks as well. So I didn't go quite as light as that, but I basically used, one of these 3 colors will do, depending on the color that you want. So I got buff, earth, and wooden deck tan. They make great series of colors for weathering locomotives. So yeah, so you can see how when it's painted flat black first, and you can see how when you dust it lightly, how it picks up all the details, right? So at the end, when the model's coming near completion, I'll just take a very light color like this and just do some dry brushing just to hit the corners and some of the details, right? I don't want to paint it actually this color. I want to dry brush with this color. Okay, so it'll help bring out some of the details more, and it won't be too much weathering. But anyway, there you have it. Okay, thanks for watching.